warmer today. I think I need my gloves. I can see it all fogged up. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Regina, and more specifically, welcome not only to our capital city of Regina, but welcome to the constituency of Regina Lakeview. I'm very pleased to be here this morning with our Saskatchewan Party candidate for Regina Lakeview, Megan Patterson. Megan has been working hard out on the doors over the course of the last number of months. I'm visiting, talking to the constituents of Regina Lakeview with respect to the plan that the Saskatchewan Party has, in respect to the representation that she would like to do on behalf of the people and to serve as their MLA. We're here in election week. We spoke yesterday as to, given the very different campaign that is happening this year as opposed to 4 years ago or any other campaign that I have experienced, it's very different with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we should be looking at this as not election day on October the 26th, but we should be looking at this as an election week. The advance polls opened yesterday. They're open again today from noon till 8. You can check on your voter's card where your nearest advance poll is, and I would encourage everyone across the province to get out this week. If you're able, avoid the lineups on election day, if there should be some, and cast your ballot for the party that matches your vision for the future of this province. We believe that is the Saskatchewan Party, and here in Regina Lakeview, we believe that is our candidate, Megan Patterson, who has been working so hard already on your behalf. And this brings us to the ballot question that people are asking themselves throughout this week. Who do you trust to recover the economy here in the province of Saskatchewan? There is a party with a record of growth, and there is a party, the NDP party, with a record of decline. The Saskatchewan Party has put forward a vision for the course of the next 4 years. It's a vision of increasing the affordability for families across this province, increasing the affordability by reducing by providing a tax incentive on any home renovations that you would do, by providing assistance with your children's sporting events or your other activities that your kids may participate in. It's by lowering your power bill by 10%. We are providing support, and we are providing that support for our seniors by increasing the seniors' income plan. We are providing support for our students across this province by increasing by 50% the Saskatchewan Advantage Scholarship, and we are doing what we can to foster an economic recovery in this province by lowering the small business tax and by increasing our capital investment plan over the course of the next 2 years to $7.5 billion. We're building schools in this city, we're building hospitals across this province, and we're upgrading our highways to ensure that they are safer for our families, as well as our products that are being transported out of this province and sold all around the world. And we have put forward a plan that is fully costed, and we will balance the budget by 2024. This is very in stark contrast to the NDP, who have no plan to balance the budget here in the province. They have a $2.7 billion projected deficit, another $4 billion in unaccounted spending in their platform, no plan to balance the budget on behalf of the people that they potentially seek to represent. They have a plan to make a plan to balance the budget, but obviously, but no plan at all. The choice this election week is very clear. It's who do you trust to recover the economy in the province of Saskatchewan? Who do you trust to create that vision for that next generation? We have here in Regina Lakeview, Megan Patterson. She is a career-driven mother of three, is raising her 3 children. If anyone knows her husband, Sean, you might say there's 3.5 or 4 children in the household, but raising her 3 children, just like so many mothers, career-driven mothers across this province. We're very proud to have Megan on our Saskatchewan Party team. We're very proud of the effort that she has made right here in Regina Lakeview, and we thank her for that effort, and I can't think of a better candidate to represent the people across this constituency as we work together from Regina Lakeview out across the city, our capital city of Regina, across the province of Saskatchewan, to ensure that we can continue down our path to a strong recovery so that we can continue to build a strong economy. We can build strong communities and ultimately build strong families, just like the Megan Patterson's family right here in Regina Lakeview. So thank you very much for joining us here this morning. Election week is on. The advanced polls are open in Regina Lakeview. They're open across the city of Regina, and they're open across the province of Saskatchewan, and we would encourage everyone to get out and vote and do so safely as they are able. So thank you. If there's any questions, we'll take those now. No questions, eh?
Hi, I'm Emily with CBC.
Hello, Emily.
I have a few questions here. So my first question is about, there is a photo of you, I believe, at a place called Cowtown.
Right.
And even though you may have been distancing, the photo doesn't show you wearing a mask. And so my question is, why not wear a mask in public when the top doctor is strongly encouraging the public to do so, especially when cases are rising?
Well, first of all, I would encourage everyone, if you haven't been in to visit a local business like Cowtown, you should do so. They have some excellent products and superb service in a locally owned business. And most certainly, if you're in the market for a jacket or pair of jeans or any of the products that they provide there, I'd encourage you to get out and support Cowtown as well as any other local businesses across the province. As they are really what drives our communities, employs our people, and in Saskatchewan, I always say small business is most certainly big business. Listen, this campaign is different. I just spoke to, campaigning during a global pandemic. It's very different than any other campaign that I think has been ran across this nation, around the world. It's very different than any campaign that I have been involved in. I did have a mask on for a period of time during my visit to Cowtown. I did not have it on when I had the opportunity to be physically distanced from others in the store. If I went shopping last night in a grocery store, I wore a mask the entire time through that. I think this just, again, we've seen various people throughout this campaign wearing masks, not wearing masks, but the masking policy in the province is very clear. When you are able to create that physical distance, a mask is not necessary. However, you should have one, and you should wear it whenever you are not able to have that physical distance. That has been very clear from the beginning. It's clear again today, and I abided by those parameters when I was in Cowtown or when I am anywhere else. But this really does speak to the very different environment that we're campaigning in. And, maybe just quickly, I would ask Megan, she has been out on the doorsteps over the course of the last number of weeks and months, to speak a little bit as to what's been different on the doorsteps and what you've been hearing from the constituents that you have visited, Megan, with respect to COVID, but also with respect to what's on the minds of residents of Regina Lakeview.
Okay, thank you, Premier. I just want to take an opportunity to also thank my volunteers for all their support throughout the campaign. So I've knocked on thousands of doors and I've talked to thousands of voters. And what I'm hearing is a general unease. People are worried. They're concerned about the future. And people are also really busy just managing their lives, right? Managing, maybe working from home still. They've got kids. They're just trying to get through their day-to-day, and they haven't had an opportunity to really look and dig deep into the details. And so we have long conversations, and I talk to them about the Sask Party's strong record, the fact that we have the lowest unemployment rate in Canada, the fact that since the Sask Party has been in power, we've seen GDP growth of 25%. Our export market has grown 50%. And that it's only because of this growth that we're able to invest in services. I talk about this government's investment in healthcare, investment in senior care, investment in education. There are 2 new schools that will be in this riding. We talk about the Sask Party's plan to get back to a balanced budget. We talk about why that's important. We talk about our AAA credit rating. We talk about how that allows us access to funds in an emergency when we need it at a lower cost. We talk about my reasons for running. And my reasons for running are that I have 3 young boys and I want them to have employment opportunities here in the province when they grow up, to live, work, and raise their families. I'm hearing that voters also have those same concerns. They're worried about the fiscal performance of the province, our ability to move forward and continue to invest long-term in services. And, I just want to encourage all our supporters to get out and vote. And for those of you who are still undecided, and there are a lot, surprisingly number, who are still undecided, I want you to ask yourself on the way to the ballot box, who do you trust to lead this province through the recovery and the pandemic? I humbly ask for your support because it's time that Regina Lakeview had a seat at the table.
So, if you are elected and if you win the federal carbon tax appeal, will you implement a Sask-made carbon pricing system?
We have a Saskatchewan plan. It's called the Plan of Prairie Resilience. It's a plan that actually works with industries across this province to reduce emissions. It's a plan we're very proud of. And listen, there is a better narrative for us to be talking about in Saskatchewan and Canada than taxing our industries and taxing the hardworking families in this province or in this nation. What we are doing in the way of innovation, what we are doing in the way of the industries that are operating here in Saskatchewan, not only from providing competitively priced, high-quality products to the world, food, fuel, and fertilizer to the world, we are also providing some of the most sustainable products in the world. And that should be recognized, and this is what we should be talking about with our customers. This is one of the reasons why we're investing in trade offices around the world is, yes, to attract investment into our province, to grow our opportunity and jobs, yes, to continue to advocate on behalf of Saskatchewan's export access into those 150 plus countries around the world, but also to tell our story of what we're doing in Saskatchewan agriculture, for instance, where it is virtually a carbon neutral industry. It is a profitable industry. It's one of the most efficient industries, agricultural and agri-food industries in the world, but it's also one of the most sustainable industries in the world when we have incorporated zero-till technology, how we are now fixing carbon in our soils across this province. A story really to tell and to show the world so that it can be replicated and we can address together from the agriculture industry's perspective, climate change from a more global perspective. The energy industry. The energy industry is one that has faced hurdles, yes, in pricing, and economic challenges around the world, but also faced challenges from our federal government, notwithstanding, and first among them is the implementation of a Trudeau carbon tax on that industry and on families in this province. Meanwhile, we have an industry that is investing in a methane reduction plan here in Saskatchewan that is among the foremost in the world, reducing our methane emissions up in that Lloydminster area with their thermal projects to virtually nil, reducing them across the province by 45%, which was the agreement that we had with the U.S., which isn't being lived up to on the U.S. side, but Saskatchewan most certainly is living up to our methane reduction plan. It's a plan that we can be very proud of. We have Evraz Steel here right in Regina, one of the most sustainable steel plants on earth. We have industries that are operating here in Saskatchewan each and every day that are operating as sustainable and in many cases more sustainable than their competitors around the world. This is a story that we need to tell from Saskatchewan's perspective. We should be doing the same from Canada's perspective. We should be doing what we can to ensure that these very sustainable, high-quality, competitively priced products are made available not only to all Canadians, but made available to people around the world, and then also work on the innovation that we have here in the province and sharing that around the world so that we can address climate change, which is not a Regina problem exclusively. It's not a Saskatchewan problem exclusively. It's not even a Canadian problem exclusively. This is a challenge that we face as people around the world, much like the COVID-19 challenge, and we need to address it in a much more holistic and a much more innovative way, of the way that Saskatchewan is actually moving forward. That's our plan for prairie resilience. It's a strong plan. I'd put it forward as one of the stronger plans in the nation.
Isn't it irresponsible, sir, for you to be seen in photographs in a retail store without wearing a mask, even for something like a photo shoot? The same afternoon, the chief medical health officer is encouraging people to wear a mask indoors, even if for 5-10 minutes? Oh,
I was in another retail location later in the day where I had a mask on the entire time. I had a mask on for part of the time that I was in this location. And listen, when I was not near anyone else by any stretch, that was the time that I was not wearing a mask in this location. Could have I been wearing a mask the entire time? I suppose I could have. I didn't, and I suppose after the media today, I probably will reconsider that. But the fact of the matter is we've been very clear on our masking policy, and I've been following that masking policy.
Do you agree with comments made by your deputy premier in a debate, I believe last night, where he talked about an openness to having a conversation with the trucking industry about introducing tolls on highway? Do you agree that there is a conversation that should be had on exploring highway tolls for truckers?
We haven't had any request for that conversation, and we haven't had that conversation, nor do we have any plans to have that conversation. So I think there's an openness to have, any conversation that, people or organizations want to across this province. That's not one that we have had or one that we're planning to have.
Then where did your deputy premier get this from? Where did he kind of pull this from if it's not something you would be willing to explore if you form government?
I didn't say we wouldn't be willing to have, we're always willing to have conversations with people. You'd have to ask the deputy premier where he why he made those comments. But the fact of the matter is from my perspective in government, it's not a conversation that we have had, and it's not one that we're planning to have.
But you are willing to explore the idea of putting tolls on highways to raise revenue for infrastructure? Putting tolls on, no, that's not a same answer. Not a conversation we've had, not one that we're planning to have. Listen, this government has taken a different approach when it comes to infrastructure. Most certainly a different approach than the government previous to us. We had for many years a government in this province for 16 years that all too long just quite frankly did not invest in our highways. In fact, it came to a culmination where we had a minister in that government tell the people of this province that they should go out and fix their own potholes. This government has taken a very different approach where we have had virtually record investments year after year in upgrading our highway system across this province. And you notice when you drive our primary highway system today versus 10 or 15 years ago that it has changed, and it has changed for the better. We have twinned highways across this province, most notably from Saskatoon to Prince Albert that I notice up in my area was a dangerous stretch of highway is now much safer. We have invested in resurfacing highways across this province, and we are now investing through our $7.5 billion booster shot investment program that we have to help recover the economy. We are going to further invest in some of our secondary highways throughout the rural areas of this province to ensure that those folks that are hauling products, export-based products out of our rural communities, they're on the very same roads as our families are commuting on, ensure that those roads are as safe as they can possibly be. Listen, we'll stand behind the investment that we have put in particular in our highway system, but all of our infrastructure across the province. We'll put that next to the record of the NDP any day of the week, including today. With respect to tolls on roads, it's not a conversation that I've been aware of, and it's not one that we're planning to have.
Is that the coat you went with at Cowtown?
Great Carhartt coat, absolutely. Go check them out.
That's not the question I had, though.
Oh, that's one. You got two.
Well, obviously, this has been, and you've mentioned it already. There's been a couple. There's numerous reasons why this campaign has been different for you, but obviously, this is different for you. This time around, you're the leader of your party. Maybe if you can talk about what it's been like throughout these last few weeks, going around the province. You've been speaking on behalf of the other candidates. Talk about what that's been like.
Well, it has been very different. And from the first perspective, from a COVID perspective, we are seeing a number of people across the province, and we have been very careful with respect to our masking policy and adhering to that masking policy. We've been very careful. My wife and I, for instance, we haven't seen each other a lot this campaign season, have also been very careful to ensure that our personal bubbles are as small as they can possibly be. We've been very careful in the campaign offices that we have visited. When we're inside, we ensure that we are wearing a mask because there are people in there. From a COVID perspective, this has been a very different campaign just in how we are conducting ourselves. And I know Megan can speak to some of the differences on the doorstep that, where we're wearing a mask, we're stepping back from the door and all sorts of things. And maybe I'll ask Megan at the end here to just come in and talk a little bit about the reception that she's received in Regina Lakeview from a COVID perspective on the doorsteps. I think the other difference that has been is we're not having large groups. We're not having these large rallies that traditionally come with elections. We're going to have a drive-in rally tomorrow and on Friday here in our two largest centers in the city, but that's very different than the rallies that we would have had in 2016 and 11 or any party would have had. So there's a lot of the discussions that I'm having as a leader, and this would be a significant personal difference for me, aren't actually with the voters on the doorsteps or in these large events. They're actually with the volunteers that are working with our campaigns across the province. And that is a significant difference for me personally, and I probably for all of the leaders that are crisscrossing the province, putting forward their vision for the next 4 years. That's the one difference that I've seen. The other piece that I've seen is there has been a number of digital interactions with people across the province. I was on some Zoom calls with a number of classrooms yesterday and had some fun with some grade 1s and some grade 5s, which I guess aren't voting this time, but they will be sooner or later. And they had some questions about everything from the election to why I cheer for the Edmonton Oilers, for example, of which I would just add the Stanley Cup was presented in Edmonton this year. We wasn't quite to my team. But yeah, very different campaign nonetheless this year relative to other years. But we're finding our way through it as Saskatchewan people. New Brunswick did this. BC is doing this. Who knows? By 3 o'clock today, we may be headed for a federal election as well. We don't know what lies ahead in that realm. And I think it's incumbent on us here in this province to show that we can do it safely, like they did in New Brunswick, like they are in British Columbia, because if there is a federal election, we are going to be the example. So, one of the reasons that we're here today is to encourage Saskatchewan people, encourage the people of Regina Lakeview to get out and exercise their option to vote. Do it in the advance polls. They're open noon till 8 today, noon till 8 right through till Saturday. It's a great way to avoid any of the crowded election day procedures and really to do so safely. And we thank Election Saskatchewan for the efforts that they are making to ensure that the voting process is done safely this year. From what we hear, there was a great turnout yesterday at the advance polls, and we expect more of the same here today. Megan, maybe just a little bit about what you're hearing from a COVID perspective on the doorsteps and the response.
Okay, so from a COVID perspective, what I'm hearing on the doorsteps is that, it's been a very, very stressful time for families, and I can certainly empathize. I mean, my husband and I were both working from home full time with 5-year-old twins and an 8-year-old who I was trying to school. So I know the challenges. I know how hard it is to try and show your 8-year-old how to use the tablet while you're working full time in a conference call with twins running around. So I can really empathize with that. I think that really feeds into the uncertainty that people are feeling and the real desire for stability, right? So we have a government who has shown that we have a strong track record in terms of leadership, managing the pandemic, as well as with our economy. So, just hoping that, everyone can get out and vote so that we can elect this government, so that I myself feel more confident moving forward that we have the right government managing us at this uncertain time.
Thanks for the question on my Cowtown Carhartt.
Nice color, too. Just a couple questions. LBGTQ community has given the Sask Party a C- grade, I believe. I don't know if you are familiar with any policies you may have to assist their concerns. And the fishing lakes just in the Qu'Appelle Valley east of Regina here, I guess, have got a bit of a pollution problem they're finding in crayfish and various not sea life, but fish life in the lake. Do we have a wetlands policy? Could you address that as well?
Sure, I will just on the LGBTQ article, I believe it was in the CBC this morning on some grades that were handed out. I understand that the Saskatchewan Party grade was there due to we were focusing on items and initiatives that we had already done as opposed to initiatives that we are going to do. And I would just say that this is an ongoing conversation and an ongoing effort of and should be of any government, and it most certainly is of this government. And we have made changes with respect to gender marking on driver's licenses, and always been engaging with the community on where we need to go from a government support perspective. On the lower fishing lakes This is a long-standing concern. I won't maybe speak to the specific question, but to just a long-standing concern of water quality throughout the Qu'Appelle system, and the efforts and initiatives around a more holistic water strategy here in the province. We have worked very hard. I actually have worked on this in previous portfolios as well, on ensuring that we are able to balance the water management here in this province, and to provide water where it is needed, to protect those from water when there is too much, and to ensure that the quality of water that we have in this province is as good as we expect and as good as we think it can be. One of the opportunities that we have to improve some of the water quality and some of the flow in areas like the the Qu'Appelle system, as well as to provide water security for not only cities like Moose Jaw, Regina, and even up into Saskatoon, but to provide a real economic opportunity far beyond agriculture and agri-food, but into other industries, mining industries, as well as manufacturing industries, by providing that water security through our commitment through the increasing the water flow out of the Diefenbaker channels into an irrigation system, but also a channel or a canal system that would provide that water security for our capital city and this surrounding area. So we're going to move on that over the course of the next decade, in constructing that very important piece of infrastructure that was a vision of 50, now probably 55 years ago, and it will provide water security not only for communities but for industries operating in the province, and will also provide the opportunity for us to increase the water quality in areas just like the Buffalo Pound as well as the Qu'Appelle system. So, an important conversation: water quality, water quantity, where it is, where it isn't across this province. One that the Water Security Agency has been active on, as well as most recently we have put a legislative secretary exclusively on that file. One with much experience in the province and in the agribusiness industry, that being Lyle Stewart, our candidate for Lumsden Morse, used to be Thunder Creek, that area. And we want to thank him for the work and the engagement that he has done with industries and communities across the province. Yes?
We've seen a growing number of COVID cases, as you well know, over the last few days. If the Sask Party is reelected, would the potential for a second lockdown be on the table?
No, we don't believe a second lockdown is necessary. Let me start by saying we're probably going to see some days ahead in the near future of continued higher cases. We have had a couple of super spreader events that have created us, put us in the situation where we have, the highest number of active COVID cases that we have had. We need people to pay attention to and adhere to the public health guidelines that are in place. They work. They're there for a reason, and I would just implore on everyone again as we move inside, as the weather cools, to really reevaluate what you're doing in your daily activities. Reevaluate the when and where you're wearing a mask. Reevaluate your contact circle. Reevaluate how many people you're coming in contact with over the course of a day and a week and every 2 weeks. All of that works, and it works well, and we've shown that works here in Saskatchewan. We have a couple of events that have went offside with that public health advice that has caused us a higher number of active cases. We're going to have a few days ahead, I think, as we get into the secondary and tertiary cases from those events. I think we're over 100 now with the event in Prince Albert. I expect some of the events that happen in Saskatoon will continue to increase for the next number of days. But we can bring this back together by adhering to the public health advices there. We need to, all of us as individuals, adhere to that advice. When we do that, we end up with some very positive collective success in our numbers across the province. When just a few of us don't adhere to that advice, we end up with some higher numbers of COVID cases, and that's what's happened here.
Thanks, everyone.